What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode number 44 of the Anthony Jennings podcast. Today I'm bringing you on Ollie Mirza of iSocialU to talk about how to create a social media marketing plan. Now, this is a big deal because I see way too many coaches, consultants, and course creators completely winging it when it comes to their social media strategy. And then they're sitting there wondering, like, well, why is this not working very well? So if you've ever wanted to ensure your social media efforts generate more leads and sales, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amix podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ, and my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. I mentioned I'd be bringing you on Ollie Mirza today. If you don't know who Ollie is, let me just give you a quick rundown. He's the founder of a data-driven social media agency called iSocialU. He's based here in Dallas, Texas. He loves helping brands and small business owners with two important aspects of digital marketing. Number one, creating an engaging social presence. And number two, generating leads, sales, and revenue. He's worked with several large brands like Chevy, AA, Lexmark, GE, Linux, and like a ton of other small businesses and startups. Now, before I bring Ollie onto the podcast, I want to let you know about Shift 101. It's a free community all about how to destroy your mental blocks, embody your greatest potential, and unlock riches in your life and business. It's full of free training that people said I should actually be charging for, but I'm not going to do that. So if you want to join, just go over to ajamix.com/community. It's 100% free, no problems. Again, just go to ajamix.com/community to request to join Shift 101. Now, with that being said, let's bring Ollie onto the podcast. Boom. Ollie, what's up, brother? Welcome to the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a while since we last spoke, so I'm super excited to be talking to you.
I am too, man. I am too. Now, today we're going to be talking about like how to really create a social media marketing plan strategically. And we'll dive into the nitty gritty. Like we'll get there, like no problems there. But first, I want to like dive into how you got started in social media marketing, because if I read your story correctly, you were not part of the marketing game. You're actually like a software person. So what led you into this crazy online social media game?
Man, you have done your homework on my background. But yeah, you're right. So my background is actually electrical engineering. That was my degree from college. But funny thing that happened, I graduated in 2003, and it was a kind of post 9/11. It was really bad job market. So there were no one was hiring like electrical engineers. So there was one opening for software engineer. So that's how I kind of made the switch I kind of like took that job. So my degree is electrical, but then I got my first job was like software. And I did that for probably like 6-7 years. And then the shift to marketing and social media was kind of steps and gradual. And one thing kind of, I mentioned what I realized working at a company called Linux in Dallas, Texas. It doesn't matter how cool our product is. It doesn't matter how cool our service is. If we are not telling people, if we are not communicating to our people, our target audience, it's all waste, right? So that was kind of like my passion for the start of my passion for marketing and then social media marketing. Because then I realized, this was back in 2014, 2015, I realized, everything is going online and there's like new sort of like channels, these things called Facebook and Instagram. So that was kind of like my beginning of my passion, away from software to, social media marketing.
Awesome. Now, did you say you were working for Linux, like the air conditioning company here in Dallas?
Yes,
So, and the reason I asked, so my uncle works there. He's worked there for, God, like 30 years or more. He's like in the research development, making sure all of the heating and cooling and like exploratory stuff. That's kind of where he's been. He's been there forever, man. So it's just interesting
man,
that you worked at Linux too.
Such a small world. And if he works still at because they have two offices in Dallas, in Carrollton and Richardson by UTD.
He's in the one in
he
Carrollton.
Works in Carrollton, and I was too. So maybe we know each other.
Yeah, maybe so, dude. Maybe so. That's awesome, dude. So what led you from, like, I know like you saw the opportunity, but like what was your journey? Were you doing marketing for Linux or were you actually doing software and stuff for them?
Great question. So first thing was I kind of realized, the software if I continue down on this path, I'm gonna be like my manager in like 10 years. And I was like, that doesn't like appeal me. So what are other options? And then I was at Lennox. I was in a position where I was working with the product team, but then I was working with our dealers and customers. So I kind of really like the aspect of working with people and asking them questions and bringing their feedback back into the product. So I kind of like, they called it like product marketing function. I like that. So that was kind of like, the beginning of my sort of passion. And at the same time, I was watching people or, social media kind of come up. My first attempt to go from software to social media was actually, I went to my boss at Lennox and I told him, hey, what can I do to move from, software or engineering to marketing? And he did, everything in his power to make that happen. But, it's interesting if anyone who works in a corporate and different companies, especially, big-sized companies, there are a lot of like, I don't want to say politics, but there's still like a lot of
No, let's just call a spade. There's politics, no doubt.
Yeah. So for various reasons, and that I wasn't, even though my boss, he really loved, where I was coming from and my background, and the hiring manager at the product marketing side, he also wanted to kind of like have me on the board on his team. But I applied twice. One time they told me I was overqualified, because actually that was true, because I had, I was making really high six-figure in my job, being the engineer, and I wanted to go to marketing. And traditionally, marketer makes less money than the engineers. So for whatever reason, we couldn't make it happen. So then my move really was, I started applying outside. And funny story is, and true, I applied to 80 jobs in Dallas. I got 8 interview calls, and then one person kind of hired me. And that was my marketing. And the reason I had to apply so many jobs, because it's kind of crazy. If you let's say your company, you have a marketing role and the person applying has a background in like software. I mean, that doesn't make sense. I remember, I think it was like St. Jude Hospital or I think it was them. The HR manager did kind of schedule an interview with me, and she was like, hey, I just have one question for you. Like, what makes you think you are a good fit for this role? Because your background is like totally different from what we are looking for. So I kind of, once I decided I want to get out from engineering and I want to, do something in marketing, I started applying. My first step was like applying for different jobs. So I finally like got one. And then I kind of over time, I developed my skills, and then on the nights and weekends, I started like side hustling and started working with clients on my own. And then once I had like 2 or 3 clients, then I quit my marketing job and then launched my own brand, iSocialU. So
Awesome.
that's sort of like my journey, going from a software. First I attempted to stay in the company. That didn't happen. Then I went outside and worked for like different marketing. Actually, I worked for some really big marketing agencies in Dallas. I did some consulting. And actually worked at Hawkeye. I think they got bought by a company called Publicis, but it's a really, really big marketing agency in downtown Dallas.
Awesome, man. Awesome. How did you go about building your audience? I mean, you're doing that, like a side hustle. I think we're kind of in a market right now where many people are going to go down that path and not voluntarily necessarily. And so for them, like, how did you make that transition with that limited time, being able to like build the audience and pick up the clients to replace your salary?
Yeah, so great question again. First, what happened when I first kind of like jumped onto to my own, I actually didn't have an audience, right? So my first kind of attempt was, let's go try to get clients and see if I can, because I didn't know if I can do it, right? I was a lot of like self-doubt, which I'm sure a lot of people who are just starting out, especially on the service side, they can probably relate to that. So I didn't know if I could do it. So my first sort of, the step was, let me go, and you can laugh at me because the first thing I did was just went to Craigslist and looked at different companies who were like saying, hey, we need like marketing help or marketing like person. I started emailing them and I said, hey, I'm not looking for a job, but I can help you with everything that you've listed. I can help you out. And here are different things I can bring to the table. And by the way, I can do it as a consultant for you. So that's how I kind of, I secured my first 5 clients. And only after I had 5 clients and I was making, enough income from it that I was comfortable to quit my job, plus also say, okay, this is something that I can really do. I'm good at this. Now let's go all in. And that's when I started like building my audience. So before I
Nice.
kind of like built my audience, I kind of built the client base or the business first.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think this is a good lesson for people because I think so many people think, oh, I have to build the audience before I can go get clients. And you're like, no, fastest path to cash. What is my fastest path to cash? You went and created the cash flow and then you circled back to then expand your audience. Super smart, man. Super smart. So with that being
Yeah.
said, like
And
everybody and their mother is like on social media and it's getting noisier and noisier and noisier. And I think a lot of people, when it comes into getting clients or when it comes into building the audience, they're totally winging it when it comes to social media marketing. And I think for a lot of business owners, a lot of solopreneurs, people getting started, it's almost like social media is this thing that they should be doing rather than really leveraging it
mhm,
strategically. So what would you say like a
mhm.
social media strategy even is? Because I don't think a lot of people even think about it that way.
Yeah, you're right. I think the evolution has been when social media kind of like first came on the scene. Everyone thought, oh, that's where all the people are. Let's go this, promote ourselves, our products and services, and we're gonna, sell a lot of stuff. That didn't happen because on the one side, for businesses, we want to promote us, our products and services, but then on the other side, as consumers, we actually don't use social media to buy stuff, right? No one goes to like Facebook and say, hey, today I'm gonna purchase a high-end new consultant, or buy like something. That's not their like first intention. There's a gap. What we want from social media as a user, as a consumer, is totally different from what we want as a business owner, right? And then I kind of like came up with a process, ABC, I call it, attract, build, and convert, to kind of like bridge that gap. But to answer your question, I think that's where we initially business owners and all of us realized, hey, social media, that's where people are. Let's go there and start promoting our stuff, start telling people who we are, what our products and services is, and they're gonna buy it. That didn't happen, and now I think everyone is realizing. So if people are not there to really like directly buy our stuff, what's the way we can still work with them, right? So that's where being educational, being entertaining, and telling your story and really like showing who you are as a brand comes in. Because if people know, like, and trust you, then they're open to considering to do business with you. If they
Totally.
don't know you, if they don't like you, if they don't trust you, they never like consider like doing business with you. So I think the evolution has been a lot of businesses kind of thought, hey, let's just go start spamming. That was the social media strategy in the early days. But then we realized, hey, that's not going to work. People are not going to just say, that's where, a lot of people that you talk to, they're going to say, hey, Facebook ads don't work, or LinkedIn doesn't work, or Facebook doesn't work, because they're not being used in the right way. It's kind of like, me going to the gym and just coming back and say, hey, brother, gym is not working for me. Well, it's because I'm not using it the way it's supposed to.
Totally.
So Facebook and social media is a tool. If we don't use it the way it's supposed to, it's not going to work. And that kind of comes back to, I think the first thing I talk to everyone, that I kind of consult with, even clients or, whatever, it doesn't have to be complicated, but do have a social media strategy plan for even for your personal brand, for your business, small business, big business. That's like before you start executing anything, do create a plan. It doesn't have to be multiple pages on Excel. It can be as simple as just on a piece of paper. But do have a plan, because that's when if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going, and you can't even like measure and then adjust.
So what does a solid social media plan actually include?
So the way I like to do it, it's actually we can dive deep into it, but it's 4 steps. Or like you can say 4 pieces. And just imagine like on a Excel sheet, you can draw like or use 4 columns, or on a piece of paper like 4, just kind of draw 4 lines. The first piece is what. So what means, get clear on what is your business and what are you selling, and how can people work with you. And I'll give you like a great example there. When I first started, right, my business was selling social media services. Great. And I was really, kind of going heavy on, let's say, Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. But no one was kind of like buying, or no one was hiring me from those platforms. So I had to kind of like step back and realize, hey, what I'm selling and what I'm doing, it's not in sync. And then I had a kind of moment of realization that the way people work with me they go whenever someone needs let's say you have a company or a brand and a furniture store, let's say in Dallas, Texas, and you need someone to do your social media. Most likely, you're not gonna go to like Instagram and start looking for someone. You're probably gonna ask in your circle of people that you know and tell them, hey, who do you recommend? Or you might be attending different events, and based on different events, you're gonna see, okay, who's good, and then you're gonna reach out to them. So a lot of like in-person networking. So that's why a lot of time, people have, even though our business is online, but you have to get clear on what's the path people take to work with your business. That's like the what for me it was, yeah, great, I'm selling social media services, but the way people work with me is when I go speak, they think that I'm the expert. They exchange business cards with me. Then they send me an email, and then they want to hire me. So when I realized that, hey, that's the what of my business. That's the kind of the business funnel for my services. I had to kind of adjust, even though social media was still very important. I wanted to become visible, but once I got clear on how people want to do business with me, then I was able to leverage it even more. So that's kind of long answer on what, but got super clear on what is your business, what are you selling, and what are the steps people need to take to work with you, right? That's number one. Number two is who. So who is your audience? And here too, go super specific. And one kind of hack or tactic I like to use is you have to be able to touch, feel, and see your audience. So for example, if you ask me, Ali, who's your audience? And I say, hey, my audience is, business owners. That's very broad, because that's like so many people all over the world. So I can go one level down and say, hey, my audience is business owners in like Dallas. Great, it's better than the first kind of statement, but still there's so many business owners. Is there a way I can go touch and feel and see these people? And then I'll kind of drill down and say, hey, my audience is business owners or startup founders who are hanging out at places like Node or Edison Treehouse or Deck. Now I'm like more specific to the extent that I can walk to these places and see and touch these people. Because the more specific you are on your target audience, the better marketing strategies you can create. And another example is, sometimes I work with different startups and they're like, hey, our target audience is, college students. So instead of that, I get them to a point where they're like, hey, our target audience is people who are going to SMU and people who are following SMU's Instagram page, or people who are following like Facebook page of UTD. Because in these, I can go to like SMU's Instagram page, and click on their following, and actually see those people. So that's what I would say. Step number one is what. Step number two is who. But get super clear, drill it down at a point where you can see, touch, and feel your audience. And then number three is where. So where basically means, this who that we define in step number two, where are these people? Online and offline. What events they're attending, what conferences they're attending, what social media channels they're following, what groups they've joined. So just write that down, where these people are. And then the last step, number four, is how. So how basically means so now we know what our business is. Now we know who is it for. We also know where these people are that we need to attract. So how are we going to attract them? So that's where your actual like tactics come in. So I kind of like summarize, what is your business about? Then who is it for specifically? And then where are these people, online and offline? And then how basically is, how can you attract these? And if you do the first three parts right, the how is super easy, because just take an example of, let's say you're building a startup and your audience is college students. And we did a good job of who and where, and we know our college students are on the Instagram page of SMU and UTD and UTA at UNT in Dallas. We can create this with ad campaigns and specifically target those people.
Yeah, I love this.
Right. So that's like kind of like the high level. We can go like specific into like some of those aspects, but
sure.
High level, the four pieces to the social media strategy that I suggest people do.
So if somebody goes through, they're clear on the what and the who and how, the where and then the how, and they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to go implement now. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen people make when they go to implement a social media marketing plan or a strategy?
So from the implementation standpoint, the biggest mistake people make is the consistency. So the example I like to give is, so if I tell you, hey, I want six pack abs, right? So what's the process of getting six pack abs, right? So I'm gonna go to the gym, right? So there will be a plan, right? And then I'll have to go to the gym every single day and do the same boring exercise. Every Monday is gonna be chest day. Every Friday is gonna be the legs day. Every Thursday is gonna be the back, whatever. So I have to do those things consistently over a long period of time to see results. Social media and any marketing is the same way. There was a stat couple of months ago I saw that we need like 8 to 10 touch points with people before like they pay attention. And I think with like the micro content now with TikToks and Snapchat, Instagram stories, that probably has gone way up. So the biggest mistake people make is they create the plan, but then they forget that hey, there is a process. It's not like, hey, we're gonna create one ad campaign and that ad campaign is gonna start working for our business, or we're gonna come up with one offer, or we're gonna create one blog post or one post on Facebook. It's gonna double our revenue. No, that's not what's gonna happen. You have to like stay. Obviously, you gotta have a kind of like the feedback mechanism or analytics and see what's working and what's not. But the biggest mistake people make is really like thinking, hey, it's just one shot, or do it once and everything will be fine. It's not. The perfect example I can give analogy is going to the gym. You have a strategy, you got to do it every single day for a long period of time, and that's when you start going from point A to point B and start seeing results.
Makes sense. Do you think one of the biggest like kind of mistakes is, we talked about this earlier, is people come online, especially small business owners, but anybody who's new to the game of social media, and they're like offer, 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 buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit, and then people tune them out. So then they're like, okay, I need to add value. So the pendulum swings all the way to the other side where they're like value, 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 random, 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 value, value. And neither one of those are going to get them paid, right? So it really is kind of that middle ground where it is the add value, but man, every now and then, like, it's okay to make a blatant offer for people to go download the thing or buy the thing. Do you find people making that mistake where they're kind of bouncing between two extremes rather than finding that middle ground in a strategic way?
Absolutely. I'm laughing because sometimes I talk to people and all they're doing is they're like, hey, we're telling people we're creating content, we're putting out offers, but people are not converting. And what they're doing is on this extreme of they're just like pitching, right? And like when you're spamming people, then people are easily gonna like tune you off, right? People are gonna like just ignore you. No one likes like being sold to. And then on the flip side, I talk to so many influencers, so many people who have the audience, and they're creating cool content or value content or entertaining content, but they're broke. They're like, how we're doing stuff and we have 50,000, 100,000 followers on Instagram or other places, but how do we monetize it? And then when I look at their content, it's all like entertaining and fun and engaging with it, but there's no like hey, what's the way people can work with you? Yep. And that's not integrated. So you're absolutely right. I think the approach I kind of in that the how, when you get to the tactics of marketing strategy, another thing I like to do is kind of introduce a process called ABC. So ABC is attract, build, and convert. Right? That's how we kind of do business in real life. We meet people, which is attracting. Then we do coffee with some of them. That's like building relationship. And then from those people, we may do business with one or two, right? So that's like conversion. So the same process, attract, build, and convert, needs to happen on our social media. So when we're posting, we gotta have attract content that people find value to, and the content helps them gravitate towards us. And then we gotta have B content where we're solving their specific problems, right? And answering their specific questions. Because if I'm not like answering specific questions for people, they're not gonna trust me as an expert or as a resource, right? And then C, right? That's where I gotta tell them, hey, this is what I do. This is how you can work with me. This is how you can pay me to hire me, or hire me for your business. So those three pieces needs to have, when you get into the tactics of social media and creating content. To me, you gotta have those ABC like integrated in it.
Awesome. What are you seeing are the best ways to really attract an audience right now?
So right now, what I'm seeing, I kind of it's not my phrase. I kind of read this somewhere and then kind of adapted it. But teaching is the new marketing. So the best way to kind of like attract right now is teach, share your hacks, your tech, especially in our like sort of community
Sure.
where people are marketers or SEO consultants or design consultants, right? So we have a way of doing things with different hacks and different tips and different tactics. So to me, like the best way to attract audiences, obviously pick a platform that you like, maybe LinkedIn or TikTok or whatever, what you're good at. My kind of like philosophy there is pick something that you're good at and that you enjoy, but then the way you're going to attract the audience is by educating them, by teaching them, and teaching is the new marketing. Because when you teach, that's when people look at you as an expert and they want to do business with you.
Nice. What is that balance though? So here's why I asked that. Because if we're not careful, people listen to this and are like, okay, I'm just going to give away everything. And what I've seen happen for a lot of people when they teach, there's a fine line to balance, like in all things in life. The power is found kind of in that middle ground. And if we're not careful, then we actually instill a false sense that the people listening can actually go and do it themselves, which normally isn't the case. Otherwise, they'd be doing it right now because there's plenty of content online on YouTube. There's plenty of tutorials, right? So where is that fine line between educating but not giving the audience a false sense that they can do it themselves?
Yeah, great question. And I think and I'll give you there are a couple of ways of doing this, and it just comes up a lot. So personally, for me, it's getting clear on like what kind of business I'm in. And in the beginning, I had, I failed a lot and a lot of like ups and downs. But then I realized over time that, hey, if someone wants to learn in DIY, that person is not my client.
Awesome.
My client is someone who knows, hey, social media is important. Social media, the person knows the value of social media, but the person does not have the time to implement it, right? So then my personal strategy, and this again, my personal strategy is give as much as I can without holding anything sort of back, and then let people who want to consume a DIY do it. And the people who realize, hey, this looks cool and we want this for our business, but we don't really have time, but get those, because that's what my audience is. So that's the approach that I take. But coming back to your question, I think there are multiple ways of, because a lot of influencers actually run into this challenge where they feel like they're always like giving, and they always, the balance between how much you want to give, what's free content, and what do you want to charge for, right?
Sure.
And a couple of things you could kind of like think of. Some people like to teach on the free content includes how is it done, right? And they charge for actually the hand holding or the support.
Exactly.
So there's a kind of the concept of, hey, here's how it's done. Here's everything in my free content. You can learn it and do it on your own. But if you need support, that's what I'm gonna like charge you for, right? So that's like one method. So what I do is kind of like, method one or option one. This one is like method two. The third one is some people try to, in their free content, they tell people what needs to happen. Like they tell people the strategy and not the how, and they charge people for the how. So I think there's like multiple ways of, and it's not easy because it took me a long time to get clear on, because I was stuck for a while. Hey, what should I put out for free? What should I charge people for? And that was keeping me from creating content, because I was kind of like confused, and I was like, what should I put this away? Because this is kind of like my secret. This is how by using hashtags like this on Instagram, this is how I grow. So if I teach people, they're never gonna like hire me, right? So I was stuck in this mindset for a long period of time, and it took me a while to realize, hey, who is my audience specifically? Who do I want to charge, and who I do not want to charge, right? But yeah, long answer, but I think there are multiple ways. One, it's not a simple sort of like in a black and white, but those like 2 or 3 options you can kind of, whoever, listening, to see, or maybe like test all 3. But then do kind of like have an internal dialogue and see, okay, what do I really want to, on my business? How do I really want to like, generate revenue? And then focus on, give everything out for free, and then focus on, charging people from however you want.
I like it, dude. I like the multiple paths up the mountain. That's totally in alignment with my philosophy, because there's multiple paths up the mountain. I'm a big fan of option number 1 personally, like being able to help somebody customize the specific information to their specific situation. Seems to work really, really well because people get caught up in their heads, and there's lots to customize there. So that one's one of my favorite approaches personally.
And one thing I'll quickly add, and I'm not totally, because I still run into different influencers and consultants. And they'll say something in their free content, but you can tell that there's something else, but they don't want to give it away unless you schedule like a couple $100 session with them. And as long as you know what business you're in, and as long as you're able to convert people, and it goes back to get clear on what business you're in. So I do see people. That's not what I do with my content, but I do see people doing it. I'm not against it. But again, you got to be clear on, what do you, because there is some audience who will, hey, I want to know how exactly you do your Instagram hashtag research, and I'll pay you a couple of $100 for a consulting session to learn that. Or, I have a drop shipping store and Facebook ads running, and I want to learn from you how to, kind of have you look over my Facebook ads, how to actually, increase my ROAS or whatever. So I think it's just multiple ways of like doing it. The mistake you want to avoid is, I think what you said earlier, don't be 100% of your content should not be just salesy or just educational, right? Or just like value. Because if you do the salesy content, that people will think you're a spammer or sales consultant or salesy, and they'll tune you off. And if you're just doing the value educational and not telling people how they can work with you, you'll go broke. So those are the two scenarios you want to avoid.
So good. And I think a lot of people too, maybe potentially, they think they have to be on all platforms. Like, okay, if I'm going to have like a legitimate social media marketing plan, then I have to be on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and now TikTok and it's exhausting. So do you believe everybody should just kind of multicast, or should they just kind of really pay attention to your formula and be like, well, what platforms are your people on? And only spend your time mastering maybe one or two of those at first, get those dialed in, and then kind of diversify to the other platforms if your audience is actually hanging out on those platforms.
Yeah, so I like the second sort of approach, but with my answer to that question has changed over the years. And if you talk to me probably next year, it might be different.
Totally.
Based on, because here's because if you look at someone like me, my business is, or my job is understand different platforms so that I can advise my clients and I can advise and guide other people, right? So when TikTok came, now I'm spending so much time on TikTok, just understanding and content creation, so I can work with clients and help them. So if depending on who you are, if you're a business owner, you're not like in the social media person like me, then I like that the focused approach. Just pick one, especially in the beginning, 1 or 2 platforms, 3 at the max, and then go deep in. Because if you're trying to do like 5 or 6 or all, your effort is gonna be diluted on all the platforms, and you won't get the maximum benefit. But on the flip side, if you're like me, then my business is teaching people or educating people on social media. Then I better know when someone comes to me and asks me, hey, should we jump on TikTok? I better have a good answer for that.
Sure.
Or what's a good way to grow on LinkedIn? I better have an educated answer for that. So I think that's kind of like how I feel. Like depending on what business you're in, during the business of social media, or if you're running a restaurant or running like a online events or fashion brand, that's how I would approach that.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Now, how do you think people like stand out in the noisy marketplace? It's very easy. I mean, anybody in the world, I'm pretty sure a monkey could probably create content from the palm of their hand. Maybe they've already done it. I don't know. But if that's the case, it's so easy. Then how do people really stand out in like today's marketplace?
Yeah, and really good question. And how do you stand out? Because there's so much noise, right? It goes back to me like the consistency. When LinkedIn kind of became hot 2 years ago, there were so many people who were kind of starting a lot of content on LinkedIn. Now they're all like kind of gone because they got busy with other things, right? My kind of like LinkedIn, it has changed a little bit. But my content plan or content strategy on LinkedIn has stayed the same. So I like if you want to stand out on any platform, you have to like show up consistently, because the thing is there's so much noise and the feed like moves so fast. If you only post, let's say once a week, or once a month, or twice in this week and then never for like next 3 months, people won't remember who you are. So the best way to kind of like stand out is teach people, but do it consistently so they start remembering who you are, and also stay on your topics. And then that's when and I like to tell people, you want to get to a point where people start coming to you with questions and start sending you DMs with questions, because that tells me now they know what you do.
Yep.
Now they kind of like associate you. So that's how I think if you want to stand out, kind of get clear on like what are the topics you want to be known for, and then pick your platforms, and then consistency is even though it's like a probably the most generic answer I think I've given on this podcast, I guess. But that's the only way you're gonna stand out on any platform. Because I can create the best video, spend a lot of money on video production, and pay my friend Jason. He's watching. What's up, Jason? Shout out. I can pay someone for like a really cool video, or maybe 1 or 2 video, but that's it. If I do that, and the videos are like gone, the lifetime value of content on social media is like a few hours, a day maximum. No one's gonna remember me in like a month.
Yep.
The only way I can stand out and for kind of create that brand with people is by showing up consistently, day in and day out.
I know it's generic advice, but this is the thing that people don't want to do. Like, this is the work. This is the grind, because it's so easy to get caught up in, oh, we're going to hit the grand slam. We're going to create the viral piece of content. And it almost takes me back to like my music days. Like, the way that we built an audience is we just played show after show after show. We played shows with 2 people there. We played shows with 10 people there. We played shows with 3,000 people there. But the only way that we got to the audience of 3,000 was just playing show after show after show after show. And sometimes they were great shows. Sometimes we thought they were absolutely terrible. And I even had Paul J. Daly on last week, and we're talking about just content and building a brand and how much it really is almost like back in the music days, because he's a past professional musician just like I am. And it's like, in order to create good music, you just create song after song. Like, you just crank them out. And most of the songs are terrible.
Yep.
But every now and then you stumble upon like a really good one. And if you keep writing, then you ultimately have a good album, right? And I think this content marketing game is very similar.
Very true. And what? Sorry, I cut you off there, but you got me. You reminded me of something. So a lot of people, and I get this question a lot, struggle with consistency. So they're like, we understand that consistency is important, but how do we become consistent, right? And my kind of like the way or hack or thing there is, do what's easy and natural for you. And that's where, if you look at the landscape, video works, YouTube works, blogging still works, micro content on Instagram and TikTok works, LinkedIn works. So whatever content format and platform you pick, they all work. You can identify people who are doing good on these platforms. But the real question is, what is going to work for you? And to me, it's really, if you want to stay consistent, is what some people do is, oh, podcast is really hot. Let me go start a podcast. But they're not like naturally into it. They're picking up the podcast just because you're doing it, or they're picking up the video just because Jason is doing it, or they're picking up TikTok because Ollie is doing it, but they're not really like into it internally. So I think if you want to be kind of like develop the habit of consistency, you have to like look inside and see what are you naturally good at. And then pick that and do. That's like my content formula. I only do what's easy for me, but I do it so consistently that then I'm able to like connect with people and build my brand.
I love this. I want to take this deeper. So, and here's why. I'm nearly 50 episodes into this podcast. There are days when it is not easy. There are days when I do not want to sit down and do this show. And so for me, there's a deeper level for me that I've been on a journey is it was a decision of like, I am committed. I'm all in for 1 year at the minimum, 2 episodes a week. It is a ton of work. And if I didn't have that little commitment switch to my brain, which was just a decision, boop, there was no why of like, oh, I need to do this for my wife and my children. No, there was none of that. It was literally just a decision. I'm doing this to go all in. How important is it for that in the game of consistency? Because I'm afraid people are going to listen to this and they're like, oh, this isn't easy. Because at some point in time, the resistance is real and it's going to punch somebody in the face. Would you agree or disagree?
I agree, and that resistance is coming in the week number 2. So as soon as you start, there's I think you kind of get excited. You start whatever podcasting or video, and after maybe a week or 2, you're gonna get exactly at that point. And I think that's where that comes in, your commitment to yourself. And I'm doing something similar. I ignored YouTube for a long period of time, but last year, back in I want to say August or September, I got super into YouTube. Now, since this lockdown, I have uploaded content daily on YouTube the month of March, and I haven't missed any day in April. So today is the last day. So 60-day of consistent loading content on YouTube. And I have some other reason we can talk about that too, if you want, why I'm like going like so deep into YouTube. But coming back to your question, I think consistency, it's gonna happen. You're gonna, once you pick something and start, very quickly you're gonna run into resistance, because there are gonna be other commitments. Things are gonna go down, or there's gonna be distractions, client calls, or people are then even gonna say. The biggest thing is, whatever reason you're starting to create that content or that consistency, you're not gonna see results. 99.9% of the time, you will not see results initially, because we like to create plans and strategy, but we all know in life, nothing goes as planned. We always have to kind of like learn and adapt and then move on. But they're kind of like, how do you fix that? It goes back to the why, and then also your commitment to yourself. If the reason you're trying to stay consistent is external, I want to do podcasts because I want to be cool. I'm going to give up because your circumstances are different than mine, and I'm going to be so busy and different client calls, I might like give up. But reason to be consistent is like internally driven. I'm likely to like stick with it to the picks and takes. So that, yeah, it's kind of long answer, but that's what I would say. I think as soon as you say, I'm committed, I'm going to start doing it consistently, very soon, early on, as soon as like week number 2 or 3, you're going to run into your resistance. But that's when you have to look at hey, are you really committed to it? And what's your why of like doing this? Are you just doing it to be cool on social media? If yes, that may not work. Are you doing it? Is there a bigger why, the bigger reason? Because your why will kind of like carry you through those paths, or those the times when you're not like feeling it.
Totally, 100%. Now, how often do you believe that somebody should be posting their own content? Like, I know you're doing daily. I do twice a week here on this podcast. Plus, I'm usually creating almost a daily Facebook post, like a legitimate piece of content. But what's your advice for those getting started here, or maybe they're in the game and they don't have a plan? How often should they be putting out content?
So I would say, pick the frequency. So, daily is kind of like extreme on this end. And
Sure.
I have, the reason I'm doing daily is it's kind of, there's so many things that are changing on the platform, and I'm able to create content creation is very easy for me. That's like my natural zone of genius, right? So I'm like doubling down on my strengths, right? But as far as it may not be for someone else, but as long as you can maintain a frequency for a long period of time, then do that. In other words, if you can do 2 twice a week, but you can do it, you tell me, hey, I can commit to twice a week for 6 months, then great, then let's do that. If you can do 3 times a week, but you can commit to it for like 6 months, then let's do that. But if someone says, hey, I want to start with like 2 or 3 times a week, but there's a chance that week number 3, I may run out of ideas, or I don't really know what I'm going to do, then I'll say don't. So it's more about, your kind of like the consistency over a long period of time. Because it's okay to, going back to the example, they're like TV dramas and series, they're like every single day. But then also, the reason we like Friends and other series, because they were on every Monday, every week at 8 p.m. Because they were so consistent over a long period of time is why we like remember those kind of brands and those series. So same thing you want to apply to your content on social media.
So love this, man. This stuff like gets me fired up thinking about this. And for somebody who's like getting it started, how important is it for them just to get started? And here's why I say that. There are times, even I've been doing podcasts and been creating content for since 2011. So, we're here at 2020, it's 9 years. There are days and weeks where I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say today. And I'm okay with it. Like I sit in the pocket and I'm just like, and I get in a place of curiosity. And I'm like, well, what would serve my people? And then the idea like comes to me and I'm like, okay, boom, that's what I'm doing the podcast on. But the thing is I just want to anchor this for people, because I think some people think, they're hearing you, they're like, okay, I'm going to commit 2 times a week, 3 times a week, 6 months. It's going to happen. They're going to get 3 weeks in, 2 weeks in, a month in, whatever. And they're not going to know what to say. And I just want to say, it's okay. You don't have to know all the answers. And that's part of the beauty of this whole game of content marketing.
Yeah. No, great question. And I want to share a very quick story. When I started this, when I kind of realized, hey, I'm working with clients and it's all cool and stuff, but I should also be creating my own content, building my own personal brand. My first platform I looked at was Quora. because Quora is like a Q&A
Oh, yep.
platform. Um, the first 6 months, me and Quora I was exactly in that, because what I was doing was, my intention was I want to create content, but what my tactics were, I was going to Quora and reading other people's answers and getting confused and getting lost and never like taking answers, never like creating any content on my own. So for like first 6 months, I didn't do anything. And then I kind of like at one point realized, hey, this is not gonna really help me. So at one point I was like, okay, I'm gonna cut down the consumption and just like start kind of like just saying whatever is in my mind. However, if I look at an answer, and however whatever I would say, because here's another thing: if you're not sure what type of content you want to produce, think of what's funny. If someone walks up to us and tells us, hey, Ali, or hey, I need your help, and this is what. Almost always, when someone asks us a question, we have an opinion, we have the answer, or we have something to say, right? But if
Totally.
someone kind of asks, hey, Ali, what's your expert tips for Facebook ads, the 3 tips in 2020? I may or may not have like the answer to it, but if someone has a question for us, it looks like, because we all like a human being, we all have like opinions on different things. So to answer your question, yeah, number one, do absolutely get started. And to me, like for me in the beginning, I was stuck for a long time when I was looking at other people's content. When I stopped looking at other people's content is when I got into my rhythm of creation.
So
So
good.
if you are getting stuck, that could be a signal that maybe you're spending too much time looking at other people. So stop like doing that. Just pretend like if someone asks you a question, and then answer that question. One other thing I'll share with you, because I was exactly in the same spot. Me in my natural state, I'm a big introvert. I'm not the extrovert. I'm not the guy who is gonna show up on the videos. I'm not the guy who is out creating content. But I do all these things, right? How? Because at one point I realized that it's really easy for me to answer specific questions. So, and that was the kind of like the change. It changed the game for me, because, and actually, if anyone kind of looks at my content today on LinkedIn or even on TikTok, most of my content is actually a question that one of my students asked. What I do is I just take that question and then turn it into like public answer. So if you're getting stuck with, hey, I don't know what type of content I should produce, an easy way is start making a list of, hey, who are your target audiences? What are their challenges? What type of questions they ask you? If you can't remember what they have asked you last 6 months, go to a place like Quora and research your keyword, and it's gonna give you like gazillions of questions your audience is asking on the platform. So take those questions and then turn those and start sharing your opinion.
So good.
And that's how you get back into.
And another tool too, because I love Quora, and another one that I've used personally is answerthepublic.com. And it has a ton of so many things, man. You could find ideas for days just with Quora, answerthepublic.com, both, man. If you're starting from ground zero, brilliant. For the people who advance, Ollie, I have a quick question. There was a time in social media when it was all about like create your content, but also curate content. How important is curating these days? Is that even still a thing?
Personally, yes, definitely. And I think it does have a, because that's it. For example, if you look at some of me, right? So my goal is I want to be known as marketing educator. Someone that you think marketing question or social media question, you think of me, right? That's my goal. To achieve that goal, I can create original content, my own content, but I can also curate content. So Facebook just launched. They're gonna try to kill Zoom, right? Whatever. Instagram just launched because of the lockdown. They launched a couple of new things in the Instagram stories that business owners can use, and to drive business to their stores. So I can take those content, I can curate those news pieces and share on my channel, but then add my own point of view, because it's still going to serve the bigger purpose of me wanting to help my audience, and then my goal of being known as a person who can help you with your marketing questions. So I think, yes, the curation definitely has a place. But you do want to make sure you put your own point of view. You make it useful to your audience.
Yep.
With your point of view. Because when Instagram announced that there's a sticker now, they launched like 2 weeks ago in Instagram stories that restaurants can use to get their audience to order food. I made a YouTube video out of it, like how to actually use it and how can restaurant owners
Nice.
utilize that feature. So that it wasn't like my original idea, my original content. I just kind of curated the news from Facebook and just kind of put my a spin on it.
That's smart, dude, and that's a huge distinction because I think so many people make the mistake where they're like, okay, I'm going to curate, and they just share. They're just sharing content, right? Sharing content, and it's almost like what I hear you saying. And it's almost like being a political talking head. Like the news is happening, and whatever somebody's perspective is fine. But there's a talking head that is giving their perspective on the news that is happening, and that's pretty much what news media is these days. Is just people's perspective of the events that are happening. And so you're kind of saying, hey, let's take that type of model and then be a talking head in your industry for whatever is trending, whatever the news is. And that's the better way to build a personal brand and be the authority within your industry. And it's a great way to do both the curation piece, as long as you're speaking over it, or the authentic, unique content pieces as well. So it's brilliant, dude. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some wisdom that would help them collapse time and get results faster, what would you tell them?
I'll tell them to start building your personal brand sooner. So I kind of my first kind of phase when I launched iSocialU, my first 2-3 years was just working with clients, getting clients, making money, and it was good because I was making good money, but I wasn't like kind of putting myself out there, so to speak, right? I wasn't creating content on my sort of channels. I was sort of like behind the scenes guy, but I think that's a mistake and that I made in the beginning, and I think a lot of people, because it also comes from like naturally who you are. Some of us are not comfortable putting it, because as soon as you start putting content out, guess what happens? Some people will agree with you, but a lot of people will disagree with you, right? So that you gotta get used to the love and the hate that you get with the content creation. But I think that's the advice I would give you, because there's a lot of benefits of putting yourself out there and then being more visible.
Awesome.
I would do that sooner.
Awesome. And if somebody follows your advice that you've shared with them today, what do you know is possible for them?
I mean, what I tell people is, if you look at the landscape, social media is not going anywhere. I mean, we as humans, we want to be lazy. We want to sit on our couch and use devices like this, and we want all the education, all the Netflix, all the entertainment given to us. And that behavior, I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. So if you kind of believe in that sort of like mindset or philosophy, that tells us the tools may change. Today TikTok is hot. Tomorrow there will be another tool, but people would prefer using tools on devices like this, maybe AR and VR. Social media and internet is not going away. The sooner you kind of realize that and then start creating content on there, the better for your business. And the thing is, if you kind of agree with me and say, yeah, that makes sense, people will be, the behavior of using social media and internet, we don't think that's going to slow down. It's only going to increase. Now, what do you do as a business owner? Now, the way you kind of stand out and build your brand as a business owner is use social media and internet as a tool and create content on top of it, right? Because that's the only way we can stand out on social media, right? Or online. Because if I have a restaurant and you have a restaurant, if you have a better presence and marketing game than me, then you're going to attract the audience versus compared to me.
Totally.
So you gotta, if you're listening to this episode or after this, as a personal brand, start creating content, start putting yourself out there. See if you can be consistent over a long period of time. And yeah, there will be a lot of like failures. You learn a lot, but if you don't start, then there's no sort of chance. If you do start, you can learn and adapt and change your strategy. But if you don't start, you'll always be stuck.
Awesome. And for those that want to learn more about Ollie, just go to isocialu.com. You can check out all of his services, his done for you consults. If you have questions about social media, Ollie, is there another place you want people to go if they want to learn more about you or they want to hire you or work with you?
So isocialu.com is my brand website. That's the best place. In addition to that, I am Ali Mirza #2 letter K, Ali Mirza 2K, on all platforms like TikTok, Instagram, even LinkedIn.
Perfect. Cool. So make sure you guys go connect with him there. Ollie, dude, thank you so much for being here today, brother. I really appreciate you. Appreciate our conversation. It's been a good time, brother. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it, my friend, Ollie Mirza. I feel like that episode was actually pretty darn solid. I know we really hammered in like the importance of commitment to creating content on this episode. You got to talk with so many people who want the hack. They want the trick to shortcut the work. And I'm here to tell you, like, I haven't found it yet. I don't think it exists. I mean, every single person that I personally know making 7 figures a year as a coach, a consultant, or a course creator, they are consistently creating and publishing content, and they've been doing it for years. Now, I'm not saying that it takes years to see results, because it doesn't. But what I am saying is if you really want to hit that 6-figure, 7-figure income targets that you have, well, then you're going to have to be creating content consistently. Like, there's just no way around it, at least in this game of being a coach, a consultant, or course creator. I like to say there's a formula for creating cash in today's marketplace, and it's actually pretty simple. It's clarity plus confidence plus certainty plus consistency equals cash. So I'm going to kind of just leave you with that little nugget of wisdom. So thank you so much for being here. If you haven't followed me over at Facebook, simply go ahead and go do that now. Simply go to facebook.com/AJAmix. Several times a week, I'm publishing unique content to help you have more peace, power, and profits. Just go to facebook.com/AJAmix and just send me a friend request. I'd love to connect with you, learn more about you, hear about more about your journey. So, my friend, that's going to do it for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate you. Until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamix.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.